It's Quadix here. If you want this series to continue, make sure you like the video, subscribe, and comment Q. Also, this video was recorded in the morning, so my voice may sound a little odd. Other than that, let's get into it. Plucking strings. The universe is a symphony of strings in the mind of God that Einstein eloquently wrote about for 30 years. Would be the cosmic music resonating through the 11-dimensional hyperspace. That was an odd quote to start with by Michio Kaku. Chapter 5, Threading the Needle. What do you mean just wait for him to wake up? Sasuke growled at Sakura, who shrank back under his baleful glare. What if Gato has hired some shinobi like Zabuza? Sakura had just been trying to impose some reason amongst the three genin that had been arguing for the past few minutes. Well then, what can we do? We need Kakashi Sensei if we want to stand up to anybody like that. We can't fight Jonin. Sasuke huffed. It had been like this the entire time. Sasuke was itching to do something after hearing about how Naruto had aided in the battle against Zabuza. Sakura, on the other hand, wanted to stay put in Tazuna's house. With Kakashi unconscious for the time being, she didn't exactly feel safe. We could hold him off. Sakura was normally the first to agree with Sasuke, but right now, her fears were far stronger than her affections. You don't know that, Sasuke. Plus, what would we even do? The dark-haired Uchiha growled, leaning further back on his chair at the kitchen table, looking up at the ceiling as if he could see through it to where Kakashi slept. He glanced ever, noticing Naruto tinkering with some kind of small mechanism in his hand. He had been rather quiet so far. You think so too, don't you, Naruto? That we shouldn't just wait around. The boy stopped about what he was doing to peer up from beneath his hood, clearly annoyed at being interrupted. He was trying to fix some of the fiddlier parts of Ramia that had been destroyed by Zabuza. Without her, he was unfortunately useless in a fight. Don't put words in my mouth. Sasuke scowled at the nonchalant reply, thinking that he was just going to side with Sakura, indecisive weaklings all of them. However, there is a merit in early action, Naruto conceded. Sasuke's brow rose slightly, perhaps he spoke too soon. Going out and looking for a fight on the other hand, Naruto slipped the small mechanism back into one of his many pockets before leaning on the table with his elbows. Isn't exactly the action of a shinobi. Sakura sighed internally. Hopefully, with Naruto's agreement, she could convince Sasuke to back down. For some reason, the dark-haired boy tended to listen to the blonde's advice. Then what do you propose? Sasuke snapped. Naruto let his head fall slightly, lowering an arm so that he was looking at his two teammates at a slant. Right now, what we lack is information. One of us should go to the town and scout it out a bit. We need a feel for what's going on in this nation. Gato's forces, his plans, really anything about him that might paint a clearer picture of what he might do. Sasuke grunted, but he didn't disagree. The academy had always stressed information gathering as an important skill for any shinobi. It was Sakura who raised her hand, a sudden fire lit behind her eyes. I could do that. Naruto smiled at her. It wasn't really a good smile and looked awkward on the blonde's features. No, as the only medic we have on the team, you're too important to risk. If Kakashi's condition gets worse, you need to be here. Sure, that was a reason. It was certainly sounded better than the fact he had no faith in her ability to learn anything remotely useful. All the same, the pinkette slumped in her seat, a dejected look on her face as Sasuke turned to Naruto. Then I'll go. He was itching to do something other than just sit around anyway. He was annoyed to find that Naruto simply chuckled at him. Sasuke, an excellent fighter you may be, a people person, you are not. Anyway, with my puppet out of commission, for the moment, you're the strongest fighter on our team by far. You'll need to be here to protect both Kakashi and Sakura. A small growl rippled from the Uchiha's throat to make his displeasure known, but he didn't argue. It was hard to when Naruto spoke nothing but the truth. even if it was weighted in his favor. As if you're such a people's person. Again, Naruto just chuckled. He supposed his sickly appearance, loner habits, and general lack of enthusiasm towards human interaction would give that impression. However, he once again surprised the Uchiha boy by slowly pulling a hand down his face. When he was finished, the shadows under his eyes were gone, as were his whiskers, and his normally delicate and pale-looking skin had taken one more healthy and tan. He completed the look by shucking his outer jacket. It made him feel more vulnerable but looked far more open, especially without the hood shadowing his eyes and hiding his long spiky hair. Hi there, Sasuke. Isn't it? Oh, hi there. Sasuke, isn't it? The other members of Team 7 were surprised when Naruto assumed a fairly relaxed posture, his tone easy and friendly. He looked across the table and gave Sakura a small wink. Looking like that, he resembled one of those bishonen straight out of the magazines she read, and a hint of red immediately entered her cheeks. And you must be Sakura. He reached across the table and quickly took her hand in a firm grip, a casual but warm smile dancing across his lips. By the time he backed away and sat back in the chair, the blush on Sakura's cheek had only intensified, and she was forced to look away. Why are you like that all of a sudden? Slowly, Naruto's normal features faded back in, revealing it to be some sort of hinge. It also revealed the small scowl he now sported as he got up and made his way to the door. Who would want to be so fake? And with that, he just walked out into the night, leaving Sasuke and Sakura alone to figure out what they should do. A young, red-haired man with a warm smile and a bright green eyes, a traveler's pack slung over one shoulder, sighed happily as he placed down what was once a large plate of sushi. He leaned back in contentment. Why'd I say it like that? Rubbing his stomach lightly as he savored the taste of the food. Behind the counter, the young auburn-haired woman manning the stall grinned happily at the first customer she had had in days. Not only that, but he had bought a lot of food, enough that she didn't have to fear Gato's taxes for another few weeks. Man, that was some fine sushi, you know? And he was so flattering too, calling her Nichan. I'm never saying that again. No. So casually like that. Already they had a nice conversation about food and cooking. She had found out the man was actually an avid food connoisseur due to his travels. Briefly, as all conversations were wont to do in Nami nowadays, they had strayed onto the hard times the nation had come under. But they were quick to divert from that. You're too kind, it's nothing special. The man merely chuckled as he placed down a few notes, subtly sliding a small piece of paper in between them before jumping back off his stool. You keep telling yourself that, but I know special when I taste it. Alright. I'm not making that joke, never mind. He grinned happily as he ducked out under the curtains to the stall, but not before a last comment. You always have to think that change is just around the corner. And with that he was gone, allowing the woman to visibly deflate as she leaned against her counter. Change. She might have laughed at the thought if all her laughter hadn't been sucked out months ago. There would be no change for Nami. She frowned though as she thumbed the money the kind stranger had left, only to brush across the note. Her eyebrows rose slightly as she read what it said. A short distance away, the visage of the kindly redhead faded to reveal Naruto, a thoughtful expression on his face. That was the last stall he would be visiting that night. By now he had a fairly solid grasp of the situation in Wave Country. Just walking around could have done that for him. Idly, he slipped some money, as well as another note, into a young girl's hat that was sat limply in front of her. She weakly played out a few notes and the beaten up violin in her hand as thanks. From what he had seen, it was a miracle it hadn't been taken from her by the patrolling thugs that wandered around the village. Gato's influence really was everywhere, and the large and brutish men walking around with weapons constantly bared. They were the police, the enforcers, the guards, and the tax collectors of Gato's operation. None of them were chakra users though, just common hoodlums given swords, as well as too much power and money. He had already seen them shake down more than a few people for their tax, which seemed to change randomly on a whim to whatever they felt like at the time. In another instance, he had actually seen a young woman kicked out of their home for not being able to pay. They were quite literally tossed out onto the street. Naruto just carried on walking, his hood and goggles covering his eyes, wondered. Hood goggles. The air reeked of destitution and hopelessness, to the point where it seemed to even infect the sky. It was as though there were a permanent rain cloud over their quite little town. People slept out in the streets, or in alleyways if they were lucky. Most of them didn't even have shoes anymore. Others just walked the streets, heads low and submissive, a general lack of purpose to their movements and expressions. Everything seemed bathed in various shades of depressing gray, and already Naruto had hated 3 different attempts by kids at stealing the things in his pockets. It was more for their own safety than any real attachment. He carried some dangerous stuff. Occasionally, like had just done, he would hand out a bit of money or a scrap of food to those he saw surviving. The ones that, despite their skinny bodies and pallid skin, continued to try to do something. Some would perform, even if the pieces and movements lacklustered or energy. Others would try and steal, like those kids. Naruto could appreciate those that stubbornly continued to try even in a poor situation. It struck a chord somewhere with them. And with each bit of food or a handful of money, he slipped a small and conspicuous note. It was just a small, simple white card with an even simpler message. But for now, while Naruto's mind was still turning its cogs, it would be enough. Some would immediately throw it away. Others might look at it in confusion for a while, but all of them would read it. People in desperate situations wanted to reach out to any small flicker of hope, however dim. Naruto would know, having lived like that himself and found that ember of hope, fanning it slowly into his art. That note simply read, "Change is coming." By the time he got back, Kakashi was once more among the conscious and was waiting for him in the kitchen, seemingly recovered from his self-induced exhaustion. Naruto briefly wondered just how draining it must be to have an artificially implanted dojutsu in one's eyes. Evidently based on how Kakashi's skin was only now regaining its color, and the man didn't seem to want to get up from the chair when he walked in. Quiet. "It's good to see you up, Kakashi." His tone didn't really convey the sentiment as he slid a chair out and sat down on it backwards so his chest was pressed up against the backrest. The man simply stared at him with a level gaze for a while. Most would have found it odd to walk in and see a Jonin staring down a genin like that. "Sakura tells me you went out to gather information. That was quick of you." Naruto nodded. He was pretty tired right now and wanted to go upstairs and sleep. Admittedly, without easy access to his workshop, ideas were coming to him slowly right now, so he'd actually gotten a fairly normal night's sleep the other night. But still. "I found out where Gato lives and works, the nearest 3 villages to us, and some of the portal routes of his thugs, although they are erratic and random at best." Naruto just decided to tell the Jonin the truth. The man had an uncanny knack at looking right past lies. Lies of omission, on the other hand, were anybody's game. Kakashi may have been able to tell he was hiding something, but Naruto was always hiding something, so there wasn't much he could do. "I appreciate the effort, but there really was no need. After all, our mission is simply to guard Tazuna while he finishes working on the bridge." Naruto raised an eyebrow but shrugged all the same. "Oh well, you can never be too prepared." We couldn't know how long you would be out for if Gata decided to send everyone else. Kakashi nodded slowly, his eye turning up into his signature smile. It's nice to feel so concerned over, but there's no need to worry. I just haven't used the eye in a while and overdid it slightly. Naruto shrugged and made to leave the kitchen. It was a bit disrespectful, but so was arriving to everything hours late. Speaking of which, Kakashi continued, making the blonde pause in the doorway. You never did seem all that surprised. Naruto chuckled tiredly, letting out a small yawn as he rounded the doorway without even turning back. Come on, sensei. Your nickname is Sharingan Kakashi. And with nothing more said, he quietly slipped upstairs for some much appreciated shut-eye. The next day, Naruto could be found up on the roof of Tazuna's house. It seemed, despite his tiredness the previous day, his body's erratic sleep schedule saw fit to wake him up near the crack of dawn. Around him, he could spot the early morning mist rolling in from the ocean, and birds were beginning to make their presence known in the trees. It was just nice to just be alone with his thoughts every so often, especially after starting as a genin and having much of his day suddenly taken up with D ranks. Right now, he was pondering something that had been on his mind since seeing the condition of Nami the other night. He was thinking about how he wanted people to view him. Normally, this was a fairly normal thought for a young pubescent teen. However, in Naruto's case, it was more how he wanted his eventual network to see him. Naturally, if he wanted information through such a source, he would inevitably need to talk, or at least communicate with, people. How that would go would be entirely up to him. Already, he had seen how effective Gata's strategy of total control through the elimination of hope and will was. It secured a fast and effective domination with little chance of resistance. At the same time, it was like building a mighty house atop foundations of sand. Alone, the house may stay up, but over time, the chances of the foundation giving away only grew. Despite the general hopelessness of Nami, humans weren't creatures to give up so easily, and the seeds of dissent were already there, waiting to be nourished. It was an effective but ultimately short-sighted approach. On the other side of that mirror, Naruto considered Konoha, where there were legions of shinobi prepared to give up their lives for their Hokage, for the will of fire. Naruto, as an outcast of this system, had never felt so much a flicker of this ideal, but he could certainly appreciate its effectiveness. While the control may not be so absolute, as people working under what they believe was a good and righteous rule didn't want to perform ostensibly evil acts, in the long term their loyalty was secured. Unfortunately, such a system had taken years of grounding and integration, not to mention the subtle indoctrination in the academy, to accomplish. And of course, the obvious examples like Orochimaru of the Sannin and Uchiha Itachi proved there were fatal flaws to the practice. So, while that approach had a great deal more promise in the long term, small mistakes tended to spiral into much larger ones with greater ease. At least under the former way, mistakes and abnormalities would be squashed before they grew too troublesome, as long as enough oversight is maintained. It was a difficult topic for a boy just coming into his teen years, but one that weighed on his mind nevertheless. His mind drifted to sorcery, as he tended to do when he reached an impasse in his thoughts. The man was a missing nin, so his methods couldn't generally be described as humane or ethical, in which case it was likely he had taken some form of the former strategy when it came to his own network. At that thought though, Naruto realized he had found his answer. As much as he admired and looked up to his unlikely inspiration, he couldn't be a carbon copy of the man. Somehow it seemed remarkably fitting that the first ever puppeteer to be seen out of Suna begun his foundations on something a little more solid than sand. Come on, Kakashi-sensei. You know it makes the most sense, Naruto argued in a neutral, almost emotionless tone. He couldn't appear to invested in the plan, that would be suspicious. And yet involves the most unnecessary risk, came the silver-haired Jonin calm reply. Only with poor planning, or don't you believe in your students? Kakashi's eyebrow rose at the fox-hurt tone Naruto put on. Believe? Yes. Trust to perform an assassination mission? No. Naruto shrugged, like the man's casual dismissal of his plan wasn't a big deal. They had been going back and forth on this for a good few minutes now. Look, I may be bad at reading, but a lot of stuff here is misspelled, okay? So it's not like 100% my fault. It's like 30-70. I've already said it isn't an assassination God dang it. I've already said it isn't an assassination mission. It's simply exfiltration from his mansion so that proper justice can be served. Kakashi continued to read his book and gently sip at his herbal tea, his body language dismissive. And since we are shinobi, or you for that matter, such paragons of justice, that was a fair point, if a little blunt. After all, shinobi were just glorified mercenaries. Naruto could have done without the slight, though, as true as it was. We've always been a tool for the masses to keep higher powers in check. That was sort of true, at least until the higher powers decided that ninja would be better off working under them. The higher power in this case being an assassination target of a mission we haven't in any way been paid for. At that, Naruto had to raise an eyebrow. Kakashi was really playing the money angle. Maybe exhaustion had affected him more than the blonde originally thought. No, but we have been paid for a protection detail, and Tazuna will never be effectively safe until Gato is dealt with. Even the bridge he's building could simply be torn down once we're gone. Kakashi shrugged with a complete lack of concern bred from 2 decades of being a shinobi. Not our problem. We do what we were paid to do. No more, no less. Naruto ran a hand through his hair slowly. It was one of those rare times he actually had his hood down. It was to try and add to the human touch to the argument. Disposing Gato would mean Nami's economy stabilizing. I'm sure they would be thankful to Konoha afterward. A debt from a strategically placed nation like Nami would be indispensable to Konoha and Hinokuni alike. Or we risk angering the man already legally in control of the nation, and Hinokuni's transportation services by sea are cut off. Naruto snorted lightly. From what he had seen, Gato was adherent only to the letter of the law and made a pastime of trampling its spirit. All the more reason to have your input so things don't go badly. Plus, right now is an opportune time to strike. While Gato can't rally any more ninja to come after us. Right now his forces consisted of mainly converted bandits and street thugs, cannon fodder to even rookie genin. For a moment Kakashi just stared at his book, his eyes not particularly focused on it. Over the day, Naruto had noticed the man spacing out at irregular intervals, as if he were mulling over a particular difficult problem. It seemed to start after Naruto gave his rundown of the events following his collapse. Naruto, tell me again, the Hunter Nin did what with Zabuza's body? Naruto sighed as he brushed more hair away from his eyes. This was why he liked his hood. It kept his messy locks in check. Sensei, changing the topic is just childish. Kakashi just gave him a level stare for a long few moments, forcing the boy to roll his eyes and lean back in his chair. Like I said, I'm not sure. When I looked back up after you fainted, fell briefly to exhaustion, Kakashi quickly interjected. Naruto raised an eyebrow but continued anyway. Both the Hunter Nin and Zabuza's body were gone. Why? Kakashi sighed, rubbing his thin chin thoughtfully. Because I don't think that was a real Hunter Nin, and Zabuza isn't dead. To his credit, Naruto's mouth only fell open a little. Almost an hour later, after Kakashi had explained his speculation to all of his students, including the proper technique for a Hunter Nin when they deal with corpse, which only served to make Sakura ill, and Naruto was back at it. Kakashi had insisted on training the three up to a level where they wouldn't be a hindrance in a fight with Zabuza and his newly identified accomplice. Naruto, on the other hand, vehemently supported the original plan of striking first and removing Zabuza's source of income as to remove him as a threat entirely. This finally seemed to be the tipping point for Kakashi as he weighed up his woefully underexperienced Genin's safety against the risk an assassination would pose. It wasn't just to their health, it was also to their innocence. There were reasons assassinations were a tuning level mission parameter. However, Naruto had already coaster bathed. Any innocence of that kind had been lost to him now. Finally, he relented under Naruto's constant pestering and allowed the boy to come up with a plan of how he would do it, just to see what the boy came up with. He was surprised then when, minutes later, Naruto plopped a small, neat folder down in front of his, jotted with small, scrawled notes and rather detailed, obviously professional blueprints of Gata's mansion and office. To the blonde, the look on the silver-haired Jonin's face was priceless. "Naruto, where'd you get time to find these blueprints?" The puppeteer shrugged as he sat himself down. Sakura and Sasuke sitting at the end of the table and watching curiously as their teammates actually coerced their sensei into an assassination. Tazuna had them. He built most of the large structures in this country, mansions included. Kakashi blinked, having sort of forgotten the fact that their client was also a rather successful architect. And this plan? It was a bit rudimentary, and any Anbu captain would look at it and scoff, but for Genin it was rather impressive, if not straightforward. "I started on it yesterday." Kakashi's eyebrows twitched. That meant Naruto had been expecting him to fold. After going over it though, he really had nothing to complain about, and with a final exhausted sigh, he just gave in. It was just so much easier that way. Naruto walked out of Tazuna's house in a rather uncharacteristic good mood. It was rare for things to so prolifically go his way. As if thinking about his own good fortune somehow soured it, Sasuke appeared. "One of us spar?" The question was deceptively innocent and wouldn't have gone too out of place amongst most Genin teams. However, this was Team 7, the one with a fangirl and two loners. Two loners that don't really enjoy interacting with people. "Why?" Naruto was cautious with his answer. Sasuke had been weird ever since the confrontation of Zabuza. He seemed usually restless, kept giving Naruto odd, almost seething looks, and was even more dismissive of Sakura than normal. "Isn't that what teammates do?" That brought a small, humorless smirk to Naruto's features. How would either of us know? Sasuke just grunted, but he didn't disagree. "Oh, do you want to spar?" Naruto snorted, moving to push past the dark-haired Uchiha. He had preparations to set up. "For what? To inflame your ego and prove what we both already know? That your taijutsu is vastly superior to my own?" Naruto just shook his head, hands immediately seeking his pockets as he pulled his hood back up. "You don't want to spar, you want to fight." Sasuke just turned and grabbed his shoulder. His features set in a scowl and a glint in his eyes. "Fine then, a fight, I don't care." Naruto looked at Sasuke for a few moments before snorting again, moving to leave and ignore the boy until he stopped acting so childishly. It was obvious that his superiority complex was acting up and ordering him to assert his dominance over Naruto. Most likely it was because of what the boy perceived his role to be in the fight against Zabuza, where Naruto merely provided some support from the sidelines like any Genin could have done. Sasuke still saw it as an involvement in a high-level confrontation. No, Ramiya is still out of action. In truth, he had fixed all of the small broken components with Ramiya's torso. He only needed to attach the severed halves. He just didn't particularly want to waste time fighting his teammate. As entertaining as it might have been, he made to leave again, only to miss Sasuke smirk imperiously at his back. "So what, you're useless without your dolls?" Naruto paused and Sasuke's smirk twisted into a victorious grin. The blonde turned back to his teammate, eye twitching slightly before he reaffirmed his features and allowed a small, unsettling smile to grow on his lips. "Alright, let me just grab a few things from my bag. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Sasuke just nodded quickly, anything to make his teammate fight him. With that, Naruto walked off back towards the house, but not before quickly veering off into the forest once he was out of Sasuke's line of sight. Just as the boy was beginning to feel the stirrings of impatience, Naruto reappeared. Almost 5 minutes later on the dot, a small smile adorned the boy's face, and he was once again clothed in his full gear, puppets notwithstanding. Just as Sasuke was about to ask if he was ready, Naruto suddenly spread his jacket. He was quickly revealed to be wearing an entire roll of explosive notes, one of which was quite happily fizzling away. Ready to start? And without further pause, Naruto exploded into a fine hail of wood and other miscellaneous debris. Up in the trees of the forest some distance away, Naruto winced, watching the final end of Dami, or at least the permutation of him. In truth, he was a rather simplistic puppet and would be easy to rebuild at home. It wasn't really all that pleasant to see any of his puppets destroyed. Lucky for him, Sasuke had enough time to dodge the explosion by leaping back into the trees, only gaining a few light scratches from the shrapnel. The notes had been rather low yield and half of them were just flash tags, so short of Sasuke running up and hugging the puppet before it blew, there hadn't been much danger. Unfortunately for Sasuke, Naruto had not intended to blow his teammate up. He simply wanted him in the forest. This was quickly made apparent as 2 of Naruto's fingers twitched, setting off identical explosions at the base of 2 trees, once again forcing Sasuke back further into the forest. "What are you doing, Naruto?" the boy called out into the forest, favoring his left side thanks to a long scratching running up his arms. Using his skills in ventriloquism and a healthy application of chakra to his vocal cords, Naruto made his voice scatter about the forest, bouncing it off trees to disorient and confuse the Uchiha. "You wanted a fight, didn't you? This is how I fight." Again his fingers twitched, and this time a large volley of kunai were set free. Quickly bearing down on his opponent, Sasuke instinctively jumped at the sound of the mechanical click and was lucky for it. Naruto had been aiming for his legs after all. Expecting another trap, he looked around variedly and was rewarded by just about spotting the faint glint of thin steel ninja wire appearing from the nearby tree to wrap him up. He gracefully jumped over the glinting threads, only to suddenly find himself without leverage and facing down another small barrage of kunai. Reflexes saved him that time, as he managed to grab the first out of the air and use it to bat away the next with a great deal of exertion. He quickly dropped the kunai when he realized it was coated in thin purple film, and was thankful for the fingerless gloves he wore that prevented it from getting on his skin. He was growing annoyed with this now. It wasn't a fight, it was a glorified training course. "Come on, Naruto, you can't have set too many traps in 5 minutes. Why don't you actually come out and fight me?" He was surprised then, having only really said it as a taunt, when he got a reply. Okay." This time there was no voice modification trickery, and Sasuke clearly heard the voice almost directly above him. When he looked up, all he got was the bottom of Naruto's sandals as the boy used his face as a stepping stone. Sasuke was right. Naruto had been running out of traps, so for the past few seconds he had been maneuvering himself into positions right above the boy, stuck to the underside of a branch with chakra. It was worth the blood rush to his head to see Sasuke gripping his nose like that, blood beginning to pour from it. Deciding not to give the prodigiously talented taijutsu user a chance to recover, Naruto rushed forward, managing to get a clean hit to the ribs before Sasuke recovered. That was all he got though, as Sasuke cleared his head and responded viciously. He locked Naruto's next punch under his arms and caught the falling kick, and promptly, in a very un-Uchiha manner, headbutted Naruto in the face. It left both boys with similarly bloodied noses. Naruto was still precisely where he wanted to be though. Getting in this close and locking himself with Naruto proved a fatal error for Sasuke, as Naruto angled his remaining arm up the boy's chest. With a dull thwip, a single long metal needle shot from Naruto's sleeve, embedding a few inches into Sasuke's chest. The effect was immediate, and Sasuke's body fell limply to the ground. his eyes wide. Naruto took a moment to wipe his nose off blood until it was clean before grinning down at the boy. "Wanna go again?" Sasuke growled, finding that while he couldn't move an inch of his body, speech was not taken from him. What the heck was that? Naruto simply pulled his long jacket sleeve up. Usually it served to hide the movements of his fingers, but it also did a good job of concealing the strange mechanism strapped to his arm. It was crude and hastily jury-rigged into position, only able to fire a single senbon before it needed reloading, but it was effective. There was also the small fact that all Naruto had on hand were actually medicinal senbon, not the combat grade ones that Hunter Nin had used. It still worked as a vector for poison though. Pretty neat, huh? I configured it from the similar launcher mechanisms in Dami's arm. He actually looked rather proud of it, because he was. It was less than 5 minutes works after all. You cheated. Naruto scoffed as he rolled his sleeve back down. There's no such thing in a fight. I just improvised. Sasuke really wanted to punch the boy, but his arms were still immobilized. What did you do to me? Naruto shrugged nonchalantly. The paralyze? Don't worry about that. You should be up again in a few minutes. His face took a thoughtful turn. Then again, the biggest thing I've tested this on was a rabbit. But I'm pretty sure I got the concentration and dosage right. He shrugged again, seemingly done with his internal debate. Dinner time at last. He nodded to himself, apparently satisfied with the assessment, and on that note he quickly left, leaving Sasuke to shout obscenities at his back until he regained mobility almost half an hour later. Naruto didn't have time for things like that though. He had a short and power-hungry businessman's assassination to deal with. Thank you all so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, make sure to like it, comment Q if you want to see the series continue, and have a great day if you want to.